Hey, it's Alex at Motoroso.com, your dedicated auto parts marketplace. Today we're in the studio, we're gonna be doing a how-to installation guide for front and rear brake pads and rotors. And the products we're installing are the Max Brakes Elite XDS cross-drilled and slotted rotors and the M1 Supreme full ceramic brake pads. And we're doing a lot of hauling right now, so this is gonna be just the performance upgrade that we need from OEM. You can shop for these products and hundreds of thousands of other top name brand products at the Motoroso marketplace, sold by trusted vendors at great prices, and our shipping is always free. Let's get started. All right, now quickly let's go over what we're gonna cover in this video. Now, we're gonna show you how to do the front and we're gonna show you how to do the rear. We're not gonna do both sides, front and rear, in the video. You only need to see it once, but obviously make sure you do both sides. Now, the process is gonna go roughly as follows. In the front, you're gonna take off the front wheel, remove the stock caliper, pull off the old rotors, pull off the old brake pads, then you're gonna push the pistons back in the caliper, put on your new rotor, put in your new brake pads, mount everything up, tighten it up, and put the front wheel back on. And in the rear, it's gonna be roughly the same. We'll show you each exact step as we go through the video. Now, if you wanna learn more about the Max Brakes Elite XDS Rotors and the M1 Supreme brake pads, make sure you check out the links to those products and our product spotlight video in the show notes. Let's get started. Tools for this project are going to include a jack and jack stands, 10, 12, 18, and 21 millimeter sockets, as well as ratchets to match those sockets. You're going to need a breaker bar and a pry bar for some of the tough stuff, and a torque wrench when you're ready to put it back together. We're going to start at the front wheel first, so jack the vehicle up and put it down on the jack stands, making sure you put those stands at the right support points. Using an impact wrench or a breaker bar, remove the lug nuts and pull your wheel off. Next, remove the brake line support bracket from the drop knuckle. This is going to make it easier to reposition the caliper after you've removed it. Next, undo the two 13 millimeter caliper bolts and pull the caliper up and out of the way. Make sure to support the caliper properly and not let it hang from the brake line, because that can do some damage and you don't want to get into that. Now remove those old worn out pads from their retaining clips. Now remove the two 21 millimeter bolts holding the caliper support bracket over the rotor. These tend to be a little bit tight, so you might need your breaker bar for this one. Now you can remove and replace the rotor by sliding the old one off and putting the new one on. Now this can stick, so we had to use a pry bar and a little bit of penetrating oil. Now install the new brake pad clips and apply grease to make sure that they don't creak and squeal. Now prep your caliper bolts for reinstallation by applying some thread locker. Reinstall that caliper support bracket by torquing the 21 millimeter bolts to 160 foot-pounds of torque. That's a lot of torque, so make sure you've got a nice long torque wrench that'll go up to that level. Install your new brake pads by pressing them into the clips and making sure that they're pressed right up against the new rotor. Before you can reinstall the caliper, you need to press the piston back into the caliper. We do this using an old brake pad and a C-clamp to press that piston back all the way into the caliper so that it'll slide back over the new pads and rotors. With the piston pressed back into the caliper, now you can slide the caliper right over the new brake pads and rotors and install the two 13mm bolts and tighten them down to 26 foot-pounds of torque. Don't forget to reinstall that brake line support bracket with the 10mm bolt. That's the first side of your front brakes done, so you're ready to put your wheel back on, install your lug nuts, tighten them down, lower the vehicle down onto the ground, and fully snug those bolts all the way down. Rinse, lather, repeat on the other side, and now you're ready to move to the rear brakes. Just like in the front, put the truck up on a jack and then put the jack stands in a place that can support the weight. Using an impact gun or a breaker bar, remove your lug nuts and pull your rear wheel off. First, you'll remove the caliper by pulling out the two 13mm bolts. Set the caliper aside so it's properly supported. Remove your brake pads by pulling them out of their retaining clips. Now pull off that caliper bracket by removing the two 18mm bolts, and again, these ones might be tough, so you might need a breaker bar. Now you're ready to replace the rear rotor by prying the old one off and sliding the new one on. Now remove all the brake pad hardware and clips from the caliper bracket and install the new ones, making sure to apply grease to all the new hardware and brackets. Prep your bolts for reinstallation by applying thread locker to both the 18 and the 13mm bolts. Reinstall the caliper bracket and tighten those 18mm bolts down to 143 foot-pounds of torque. Install your new brake pads by sliding them into the retaining clips. Just like in the front, you're going to need to push the piston back into the caliper so that it can slide over the new pads and rotors. Use an old brake pad and a C-clamp to press it back in. Now reinstall the caliper by sliding it over and putting those 13mm bolts in and tightening them down to 26 foot-pounds of torque. Reinstall your rear wheel by tightening the lug nuts, putting it on the ground, and using a breaker bar to get them good and tight. And as usual, put all those old rotors and pads in a nice safe place. Congratulations, you just finished installing rotors and brake pads on your F-150. Now there's still two very, very important steps to do. Do not skip these steps. First and foremost, your brake pedal is going to go all the way to the floor the first time you press it. If you roll out of your driveway with no brakes, you're going to have a lot more to fix than your brakes. So make sure you go, start your car, pump that pedal, make sure everything's feeling tight. On top of that, you need to do your break-in procedure. Your brake pads are not yet mated to your rotors, and you need to do the break-in procedure. And your brakes are not going to work very well, so make sure you're careful when driving to do your break-in procedure. And when you go to do your break-in procedure, make sure you choose a safe place with no other cars around. Your break-in procedure for the Max Brakes Elite XDS Rotors and the M1 Supreme brake pads is as follows. You're going to do 5 moderate to aggressive stops from 40 miles per hour down to 5 miles per hour without coming to a complete stop and without letting your rotors cool in between. Then let everything cool down for about 10 minutes. Then go ahead and do 5 more moderate stops from 25 to 5 and let your rotors cool up in between. And then that'll be your break-in procedure. Now that's for the Max Brakes kit we talked about. If you have another kit, make sure you research the proper bedding and procedure for that kit. That wraps up our installation guide for the Max Brakes Elite XDS cross-drilled and slotted rotors and M1 Supreme ceramic brake pads. We hope you found the video helpful. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for all of our future videos. You can shop for these products and hundreds of thousands of other top name brand products at the Motoroso Marketplace, sold by trusted vendors at great prices, and the shipping is always free with no minimum. Thanks for watching.